Hi, friends, and thank you for joining us for another episode of iTestify. We have with us two special guests, Katie Elison and Christian Villegas, and they are joining us to share about a ministry they're involved in. Now, Katie is a PhD candidate, and Christian is a first-year medical student. And that won't be necessarily relevant for this particular topic, but it does show that they are very involved in their own professional lives, but still making time for ministry. And they're going to be sharing with us At the Door. Now, what exactly is At the Door?
Well, At the Door, initially started as just Great Controversy ministry, because we would go to the doors in San Bernardino, knocking on them, giving them the Great Controversies.
Now, what's the Great Controversy for those who may not have read it?
Yes, good question, Reed. So the Great Controversy is one of my personal favorite books, but it's a book that basically talks about the history of the Christian church, but also what's happening today and what we have hope for the future. That's kind of my little summary of a very intense but beautiful book. And so we would hand out the Great Controversies, but then the ministry started to grow to a point where we started doing other things at the door. And so we transitioned to At the Door ministry.
Excellent, excellent. And so you said it's grown. How many did it start with, and how many has it grown to? And how long have you been doing it for?
I think we've been doing it for about 3 to 4 years now. And I mean, I know it's grown into other components now, right? So we have we have multiple different ministries. So because we wanted to first just pass out the Great Controversy, but then now we want to address more I guess the whole person. So the spiritual needs, their physical needs as well. So we also have a Health at the Door ministry where they can come later to the doors that are more interested in health counseling as well. And then we have a family Bible study ministry as well, where they can go to there's a church in San Bernardino that they can come to for Bible study, or they do home studies, right?
Yeah, so with it's kind of more focused for the children, and so they have the children come, and we'll show some pictures about that later, but that's even growing. And then people just started wanting Bible studies as well, and so we do that. And then lastly, caroling at the door, which we have during Christmas, and even sometimes just we like to sing at the door with people, so.
Excellent.
I think this is a good illustration of those that are faithful in the least. He gives more to do, and that your ministry has grown. Wow, so many components of life, of lifestyle as well. So you're hitting spiritual as well as health, and all the different family members as well. Beautiful.
What was it that inspired you guys? Maybe you can do one at a time. What was it that kind of inspired you to get this thing started, or to be involved in this?
Well, I think for me, so I recently graduated from PUC, Pacific Union College, and up there I was doing a lot of ministry involved in homeless ministries. And so from there, I discovered the importance of developing a relationship with people, and really the personal aspect of ministry, how important that is. And so then coming down here, I didn't have any ministries to be a part of exactly. It was just kind of new to the area, doing them. And so we had my wife and I had a friend that invited us to Evan Hope, where we go to now as well. And then they invited us to come At the Door, and then we saw the kind of the beauty of going door to door, and kind of this awesome, really work of faith that we have to go door to door, because we may not see exactly the fruits of our labor. We may not see them come back to us and say, "Thank you so much for this book. It's changed my life." It's just kind of sometimes we talk with them, we pray with them, and then we just leave it between them and the Holy Spirit. So I think seeing that kind of drew me to come back each and every week, and then as a result of that, we became more involved in leadership as well.
For me, I was less involved in outreach, probably more so inreach. So I'm a pastor's kid, so it's more focused on the church and the local church. But when I came to Loma Linda, a friend invited me, and I'm a huge introvert, so I was like, I'll just go and watch. And I went a couple times, and then I was going through some personal struggles at the time, and I went, and I had one of those, divine appointments where exactly that God was wanting you there. And since then, I tried not missing a Sabbath, because I knew that there were people that were intentionally waiting for us. And so I started going regularly, and then they asked, can you be a leader? And I'm like, I have nothing to contribute. But then it was a blessing for me. And like Christian said, sometimes you do see the fruit of your labor, and it's so rewarding. And the tiny times that you do, you just, you want to go back. You know that they're your brothers and sisters that need the gospel.
I want to ask this because I think it's something, you know, I can relate to personally, and I think a lot of our viewers probably can. The first time when you thought about, you know, it may not have been with this ministry even, but when you thought about going up and knocking on a door, you know, to offer somebody something, were you a little bit hesitant about that? Did it make you a little bit nervous? And if so, how did you handle that? How did you get past it?
I think I was definitely nervous going door to door because I didn't, like a lot of people that I think come to door to door, they might be drawn to it because they previously did canvassing or co-portering. And I grew up not doing that at all. And so this is kind of like the first time experience for me really like trying to share like a short, concise message of the gospel and the great controversy. And so I think what encouraged me is that knowing that you're going with a team of people. So like we group them up into like groups of 2, but then we have like maybe a group of 6 that cover the whole entire neighborhood there. And so seeing other people going door to door kind of really encouraged me and said like, well, if they can do it too, like, you know, I can do it too. And then I know that before we go, we were always praying and asking for God's guidance. And I think just trusting that He'll guide my words, I think kind of helped me get over that fear. I think so.
Yeah, I think for me would be similar. I had no prior experience canvassing, and I was definitely afraid. And we decided the first time I went to go to Baseline in San Bernardino and just walk up to people, not even go to their doors. And for me, I was extremely intimidated. And again, I just watched. But when you start seeing how God gives you the words, even though you don't have them, God gives you this, just the spirit, the essence of being with people. And you just start having this intense love for them that you forget about yourself. And you just completely think about that person and what they need and that they need Christ. And so you get over that fear very quickly, and you actually become, in a way, I don't like to use the word addicted, but you really become recharged by this work.
True.
I think to add on to what Jeff was saying, my question was, you know, this is a difficult work for some. Not only do you maybe get rejected more than once, but some of these people you don't ever see again. It's just that flash at the door, and you may never see them, and you have this one chance. What would you say to people who may be a little bit intimidated, like you were, by something like this? What is, because there's obviously a great blessing that comes away with that, but this hardship, this struggle that we have, where we have this one moment with people, how do you deal with that? And what would you say for those who are maybe going through a similar outreach, having similar experiences?
Well, I think one thing is that it can almost be a blessing too that you won't see them ever again too, in the sense of like that you kind of think like, oh, what if they see me on the street? Like, you know, they might think like, oh, that maybe I'm some kind of like fanatic or something too. But I think also it could be liberating in the sense of, okay, like this is the only time I get to see them, so then I really get to, you know, go all out and show them like, and just kind of share with them all that's been shared with me. And I think when I think of like, this might be the only time I see them, I think of Jesus, because Jesus, as I keep continue to study more about him, I realize that he made each and every interaction with someone like as meaningful as can be, because he knew that might be the only time that they get to experience, you know, love and acceptance and grace. And so I think maybe just having him in mind and seeing how he interacts with people might be more empowering.
And to bridge off of that, I think, you know, Jesus said that if they hate you, it's because they hate me.
Yeah.
And so every time someone rejects me, I'm like, God, which is even kind of more saddening to think, well, they're rejecting Christ. They're not really rejecting me, as well as I think about Galatians 6, where it says, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you shall reap if you do not lose heart. And so that verse has been my saving grace, just continuing and pushing me forward.
You know, one of the things that is interesting is that Andrew, who was the one that started the Great Controversy ministry about 3 years ago, he was an ophthalmology resident. And then Ahmed, he was a medical student like yourself, and they collectively worked together to try and get Great Controversies at every door. Now, that you're covering San Bernardino, and that's a huge territory. That's a lot of doors, which means a lot of books.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years, I mean, have you guys kept track? How many do you estimate of the book, The Great Controversy, you've given out? How many doors do you think have been knocked on, and how many people have been reached?
I don't know if we have a particular number of doors. I know that we have a percentage. I think that's kind of what we gauge of like how much of San Bernardino, the city, we've reached. And so far, I think our latest number is that we've reached about 60% of San Bernardino now.
60% in 3 years. And that's every Sabbath for the most part, 99% of the time. That's a lot of doors knocked on, because you go 2 by 2. How many typically are in a group per Sabbath?
I think it ranges, right? Sometimes we can have as many as like 20 people, especially when we do like the caroling at the door. Sometimes we can have as little as like 4 people.
Okay.
But I think regardless, we're still able to cover a decent amount of doors, and I think each and every time there's always a powerful testimony that comes from that as well.
So you're 60% done. So what's after San Bernardino? Los Angeles or what's?
Will you join us, Jeff?
It's a long commute.
I mean, we have some ideas. We don't know exactly for sure what cities we're going to cover next. We might come just like neighboring cities like Redlands, or maybe a special type of ministry for Loma Linda as well, too. And so we're still working on that, right?
And even just we've started to try to replicate this model in other churches, and so we know that we can't do the work all ourselves, and so hopefully getting other churches involved and having them cover their cities, and that it can just have a ripple effect to then covering, let's say, not just Los Angeles, but everywhere. Yeah.
So what other ministries are existing at the door? At the door is very open to other aspects. You mentioned the cooking and was it taking people to church and children's ministry, and you say you had a couple testimonies to say as well.
Yeah, I'll show you some pictures for the children's ministry. So this picture is actually one of the very first Bible study contacts. And so when they asked me to come on board, they gave me this long list of Bible study contacts that had not been, we didn't have enough people to actually contact them and follow up with them. And so this was one of the first Bible studies that we did. And the lady, I remember I called her and she was like, oh no, like, yeah, I remember you guys, but I don't want Bible studies. I've now had them with Jehovah's Witness, I've had them with Mormons, and you guys just always come with your books and your religion. You're trying to convert me to your religion. And I remember telling her, and this came from God, because I said, you know, you can buy my Bible at Barnes & Noble. This is not a Seventh-day Adventist. We're not trying to convert you to Adventism. We're trying to get you connected with God. And for her, that was like, okay, I'll give you guys a shot. But the thing is, she's like, you have to come. And I was like, oh Lord, like, I had to give the Bible study. And she also had 3 kids. And so my sister and I, not as experienced in giving Bible studies, especially to a family, we just sat around the table, opened up Amazing Facts Study Guide, you know, is there anything left you can trust? And we started reading one by one. And then it started progressing to, my sister then took care of the kids. I would do one-on-one with the mother. And here my sister is praying with the kids. And now these kids are the kids that then started up the children's ministry part. And so they have grown. So then it started with 3 additional girls, where these girls started coming because people from our ministry just delivered bread to their parents' homes. And then the children started, oh, do you have any programs? And so they started coming. And now it continues to grow. And you can see there that I think there's like 6 in that picture, but now there's about 12 kids.
Wow.
And it continues to grow, and kids in their neighborhoods are saying, where are you going? You know, they come and they pick them up. Where are you going? Oh, we want to go too. And so that's just been one little aspect of the ministry that continues to grow. And the kids, just not the number is as important, but the kids themselves are just learning so much, and they're so hungry. And these are kids from San Bernardino, so they have a lot of behavioral difficulties, a lot of issues. Their parents, some are incarcerated. It's a very difficult situation that they're being transformed, not just spiritually of knowing more, but even their homes are being transformed, which is a blessing to see.
Very good. Wow. So these kids are getting in cars with perfect strangers and driven away to a Bible study,
Yes, there's a
coming
lot
back
of trust there.
transformed. Very
And
good.
you take them to a nearby church?
Yes.
Okay.
So, do you guys have a particular Bible passage that's been meaningful for you in this ministry that you'd like to share?
Yeah, from Luke 10:29.
Okay, Luke 10:29.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll look that up and I'll go ahead and read it. Okay, so that's Luke chapter 10 and verse 29. It says, "But he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, 'And who is my neighbor?'" So what about that has resonated with you guys?
Well, I think one of the things that comes to my mind is, when that Jewish Pharisee, I believe, when he was asking that question, or it was the lawyer, sorry, when he asked that question, he was really asking, like, who am I bound to love? Like, who do I have to love? And then Jesus essentially tells him through that story that, well, you're bound to love everyone, and especially that you, by loving the person right next to you, you make that person your neighbor. You become fully invested in them. And I think with going door to door, we're going door to door, and what we're really trying to do is just trying to share God's love with them. And so as we're going door to door, we want them to see a love that is different from what the world has to offer, and we want to give them hope.
And they're literally our neighbors
Yeah,
here in Loma
that's
Linda. San Bernardino, I think often there's the freeway and we say don't cross that, or we forget we live in this little bubble, and they're our neighbors. And we are accountable to be reaching out to our brothers and sisters.
You know, it made me think of, when you guys said that passage, it made me think of another passage where, you know, a lot of times they are our neighbors, like you said, but I think a lot of times we treat them more like strangers, right? That's the natural tendency. And so it made me think of in Matthew 25 and in verses 34 through 36. And that says, "Then the king will say to those on his right hand, 'Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.'" And so I think this ministry that you guys are doing is really an aspect of that, because these are people that are, and a lot of people in that area are struggling with economic challenges, And so it are people that could be strangers to us. They could be hungry, definitely spiritually hungry and thirsty, right? And so you guys are saying, no, we're going to be neighbors. We're not going to be strangers, and we want to take you in, so to speak. So that's meaningful to me.
Going back to Luke, just a couple verses before, Christian, you mentioned this already, but in verse 27, when he says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," that's super significant, because it's that kind of love, like what you were saying. It's a different kind of love than a worldly love, and loving your neighbor as yourself is harder than people think. It seems so easy just to say, "Oh, it's the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated." But really, what does that mean? That's an abdication of self from the very core. To put that kind of love onto someone else is something that only God can give us. And it's like you were saying, Katie. That I found that so significant. That woman who you were talking about. She's like, "Yeah, I've had Bible studies before. I've had Bible studies before." But what you were offering her was what the Lord was offering her, which was not just a Bible study. It wasn't a forced conversion. It was like, I want to show you the Lord's love for you. That's profound.
So those two individuals who are obviously busy, studying, preparing, teaching or taking tests. Does this kind of seem more exhaustive to you every week to have to add this one more thing to your daily schedule, or is it something that you find does the opposite? It actually gives you more encouragement or energy. How does that work for you?
Well, I think you can definitely perceive it as exhaustive. I think sometimes like there have been times where coming into before at the door, I'm like, oh, okay, like it'd be nice to take some more rest or something like that. But as I go at the door, I become really like Katie was saying, recharged. I feel like revitalized, and like I think because it's something special, like going to that one door and you're realizing that God put you there to talk with that specific person, and the only way that you can talk to them. And I think it's so special and so beautiful that like afterwards, I feel that I have like even more energy to continue on for the new week that comes.
Yeah, I would say the same. And it's kind of like a sense of heaven on earth, even just the process of sometimes I'm with my partner, we're going door to door and we're singing hymns or just encouraging each other. And even if they're, all constant rejections, it's just a sense of purpose and knowing that you're fulfilling the Great Commission.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. This is Christ used to give illustrations about what the kingdom of heaven was like. It's a net. It's a worker in his field. But what the kingdom of heaven is not, it's not just a place you go and just rest. Yeah. You don't just go to heaven and everyone's just taking naps all day, which is what we tend to do a lot of times. We're like, oh, it's an exhaustive week, I'm just going to take a nap. Well, Christ said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and he didn't just go around taking naps. He was out giving a lot of himself on a regular basis, which, it can be tiresome, but it's also rewarding because you're following the steps of someone who led the way before you, a forerunner who told you this is actually the best way to give, not only to give, but to receive. So it's pretty interesting to see that you don't really realize the benefits of doing ministry until you're doing ministry.
Yeah.
Seems counterintuitive, actually.
And you draw your strength from him who gives it to you. So that even when you're exhausted, I feel. And I've been to At the Door a couple times, a couple years back. And even though you're exhausted, you somehow find the strength to keep on going on. And like you said, it's actually recharging. It's beautiful, but you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah.
I remember being in school and just starting to get involved in ministries, kind of in your position. And, sometimes you went there, you were tired, and you left, and you're even more tired.
Yeah, that's true.
But the idea of knowing that you did something important, even if you didn't understand exactly what you did, that idea kept me going. And, it's easy to sometimes think, well, I just don't have time. But when you consistently say, I'm going to make time, and I see that's exactly what you guys are going to do, you start to place God's and his kingdom at the importance of where it should be. And that's something also that defines who God is and how you love him and how he loves you. And I think that's really important as well. So,
I think it's a theme we've definitely heard from you guys, and what we want to encourage with this show really is, not every day are you going to feel like going out and doing something for God, but when you do, you'll be blessed and you'll actually be enriched and feel more recharged from doing it. So it's just taking that step and trusting God that he's going to, provide you the energy to keep on going with that.
I think it's such a blessing too. It's such a privilege that God chooses to use us, seemingly like imperfect vessels, to communicate his love to others around us too. I think that also keeps me going too, and seeing also that we get to take part in the work that those before us have taken part of too. The founders of the church as well, like how they sacrificed, basically everything so that people can have that message, the beautiful message,
And in that way, it doesn't become work. I mean, we're really talking about a mental state that's changed. If it's a privilege to do, and you're desiring to do it. You're thankful to do it.
So do you have a couple more pictures to show us about some of the the work being done out there in the field?
Yeah. So these are a couple. The first top left there, you can spot read there as well. And this is one of the caroling at the door. So we had a group that went together in a neighborhood to carol at the door. And then the bottom there, bottom left, just how we typically just walk through the neighborhoods and just start dispersing. And then the right there is somebody, one of our partners, when he was walking by, caught us in action praying with a group of young men there. And some so surprising where you often go to a door and you think, oh, this person, you start playing that game, oh, this person's not going to be as receptive. And you're always surprised. And these group of individuals, I was there praying with them, and you come up to them, they were by their BMW, and they were kind of a little, you start making your judgments. And praise God that God corrects you very quickly and saying, you know, what I have in store is very different from what you expect. And so these individuals, we got together and they wanted to pray. And so these just a couple of pictures of things that we typically do, and God always surprises us also. Sometimes we plan on doing something, and God has something else in store that day.
So you go out every Sabbath, except for one Sabbath per month, you join Parks and Streets,
Yes.
which goes out to literally parks and streets,
Yes.
and hands out food, and typically just kind of reaches out to more actually the homeless. Is that more what they reach out to? Otherwise, you're doing door to door.
Yeah. Rain or shine.
Yes, rain or shine.
In 117-degree weather.
Yeah.
Yes, which is actually more of a blessing because they're like, wow, you're outside in this heat. There's something really important that you have for us. And rain as well. Definitely showers of blessing.
Yeah.
What would you say to get someone involved in your ministry or to do something like it?
Come.
Yeah, it's only an hour, maybe 2 hours of your time, so it's not that much. And I think that you'll also develop some great relationships and make some good friends out of that too.
Yeah. Be co-laborers with God in this work, and you can do it anywhere. There's doors everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And you guys have information where we can contact, or people can contact you as well?
Yes.
I don't know if it's...
I think it'll appear on the
It'll
screen.
appear.
It's,
Okay. Yes.
And that's your email,
Yes,
is that
that's
right?
Yes, that's my email. Yeah, that you can email me if you have any questions or like to be a part of this ministry.
Well, thank you, Katie and Christian, for coming and sharing your experience with us. It's been enlightening, and I think I might have to join you guys one Sabbath.
Awesome. Thank you for having
And for
us.
all viewers at home, I encourage you to continue to tune in on LLBN.tv, and we appreciate your prayers and support.